This is day 490 of Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you'd like to sponsor upcoming share more of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please contact me directly. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you're reading Siman Shin Yud, Sif Yud Gimel to Siman Shin Yud Aleph, Sif Base. Yud Gimel. Pinei Zesh Kos of the Shitas who also taught of Kis Mos below Mos. If you're not allowed to carry a purse, even if it has no money in it, Shlo Tzar Gufon Komo. But it's not Tzar Gufon Komo. Yet in the same time, according to the Rif of the Rambam, it's completely permissible because it's Klisha Maktal Heter. The person can carry anything, of course. But Rambam if you have pockets which are sewn onto garments, certainly that's the case. That if they're purses which are distinctly recognizable as purses and they're not pockets sewn on the garments, logic would dictate that the klim lachtam shlisser. Excuse me. The Rama holds that since the purse is suitable for anything, it's not called klisha machtal lisser. Not like other kelim which are machtal lisser. And that which you wrote then when the pocket is sewn onto the garment. If you took out the money, you're allowed to wear it. Like he's bought because the pocket is subordinate to the garment. Let's suppose you're sarabim. In terms of going out to a public thoroughfare. In terms of muktzeh would not require the logic of being subordinate. Because even if it wasn't subordinate, it would be no worse than Klisha Maktal Lisser. You can take out Tzar Gufo. Here it's a Tzar Gufo that you need to wear the garment. It's coming to say it is not considered to be a burden that should be carrying Shus Rabbi because it's subordinate. That what you wrote that when you forgot money inside, you're allowed to carry the garment. Since money is not the primary part of the garment, if you forgot the money there, you don't really need a reason. If you forgot the money there, it didn't become basis to Avrasa or Davrasa. But this is what it means to say. If it was on the primary part of the garment, you forgot it there, you would have to shake off the money. But here, it's not required to do so. Those say, however, that even in this case, it's in the pocket, you have to shake them out. But even if you put them there deliberately, it's not a primary part of the garment, the garment does not become a basis. Can use the remote also that way. The Nakib Shachach, he talks about a case where he forgot Mishum. The Bekavana also in the Moshe because now I have to deliberately put money there. The Shema Yetzer was just a rabbi because you might go out to a Shus Rabbi with it. Mr. Bura writes that if it's possible to shake on the money, you should always shake on the money regardless. He also, when the Sharatzin writes that he doesn't know a source that that an issue might be. I'm not sure what he's talking about here. Going on the Kavana Aslan Yaf Mosham, the Shem Yetzer Reshus Rabim. It says that if the pocket is sewn on the garment, even if you forgot them, you have to initially shake them out before you move the garment. Bear in mind, there are two types of pockets. There's the pockets which you have, which are sewn into the garment. This is a pocket which is sewn into the garment, right? And then there's, like you have on jeans and such pants, where you have the pocket which is sewn onto the garment. And the pocket, which we're talking about here, pocket sewn onto the garment as opposed to sewn into the garment. So when it's sewn onto the garment, it's not as tough to the garment as when it's sewn into the garment. I think that's the case. I know in halacha there's such a distinction. I believe we're going to that distinction over here. Let's see. It says, also at least the other bakis, says the Arukh HaShulchan. You're allowed to put your hand in the pocket which held the money. If the pocket's by itself, but it's tied onto the garment, does nasa beggar busik sheesh beyond most makis. Then the beggar becomes a basis when there's money in the purse. Since it's by itself, just tied on, and has special significance. So to a box on a table which has money, I guess a box which is part of a table, which has money. Also, show him to the time saying I'll do the table for that reason. And when Mishra says if it's only a few prutos inside, then they're subordinate to the table, to the garment, and subordinate to the table. So it depends how expensive, how much money you have. Also says when the box is hanging on the table, then it's when the box hanging on the table is normally made for bread and knives, and you put money there just by happenstance. Even if it doesn't have bread and knives, still you're allowed to move the table, although he's not sure about that. Back to Arukh HaShulchan. So again, when there's money in the table now to move it, unless there's on the table, also something which is permissible, and then it's a busted davra mutter. But he says here, the Arukh HaShulchan says, the box should be completely tafel to the table, which Mishnah Berurah says, and obviously also a case when there's very little money in it, or it's only made for other purposes. Shatim is on the prima is a stopik, that perhaps you might even have to have something mutter in that box. Mishnah Berurah says that if it's made, however, in a way that you can't remove it from the table, then it's certainly batel to the primary part of it, to the subordinate to the table. Okay, there is a long brackets here. So according to Rashi, that the muchni is a wheel, which there's money on top. It's the base, Shashida made on which a closet stands. Both according to the Rai, but holds some sort of other kind of wheel. Where all the usage all the usage to the muchni and sham because to the muchni, they're primarily taking the muchni. Based on the table, what comparison is it to the box and the table? So everybody says if it's similar to the case of muchni, you're allowed to move it as well. Okay, obviously he did not draw a distinction here between the types of pockets which I was expecting to draw, but in the case of the pocket which is built into the garment, post pocket on the outside of the garment, we're much more mako, and you can even stick your hand into that pocket as long as you move the money. It's supposed to pocket on the outside, where it seems that some post can hold, at least like we saw, that you should not put your hand in that pocket even once the money has been removed. Yudak, finance by the buses stuff, also davar mutter. Okay, we said it's a base for both, then it's permissible. We have seen excuse me. We have seen test involved the gam zeba koshi tiru. Even to say you're only allowed with great difficulty, b'shas atchak, if it's a difficult situation, ayin sham. Locate tzorchan as isra, otherwise you have to shake off the isra. Gam tzorch isra b'ati yehu Allah ben hashmashos. Also that which is mutter, both have to be on it. Ben hashmashos. Tima isra levato ben hashmashos, because if only the prohibited substance is on it ben hashmashos, ain't no mashiach et the Shabbos. So you might put the mutter thing on Shabbos, doesn't do you any good. Dikra b'sisa. I like that term. Never saw it before. The primary making of the base, who ben hashmashos. Lefech is a trial. Lefech bloya isra ben hashmashos. I feel bloya there. Of course, the opposite is true as well. If there's no isra on ben hashmashos, even without a hitter, no, I said basel chol Shabbos. Can't become basel chol Shabbos. El rakba that I love only when it's actually on it. The muktzah is actually on it. Of course, in such a situation, you're allowed to put the heter on it on Shabbos together with the isra and move it. If you need to do it because you can't shake off the prohibited substance. Or if you have a loss, then you move this. Cliche shalav davar shahasu v'davar mutar. If a keli which has on it something which is also something which is mutar. Mutter Tatlu, not to move it. Kagom Machta, such as a plate, Sheish Lami, well, actually it's a shovel. Sheish Lami Bad Yom Efer, which has on it ashes, it says here in brackets, Shenisim Erev Shabbos, which were created Erev Shabbos. Shemut Tatlu Chatzis Boroko, so we should have to carry in order to move, in order to cover saliva or excrement. Yeshua Ganke Shiva Eitzim also has on a broken piece of wood, Shem Asur, which are forbidden to carry. Mutter Tatla Machla Kamoshi. You're allowed to carry the shovel as is. Chonsha Davra Mutar, Chashumi Davra Oslo is something which is mutter, more significant than the thing which is awesome. But if the thing which is awesome is more significant, the thing which is mutter, but the let's love also Tatla, then it's negated, and you may not move it. That's Arukh HaShulchan, stand according to the Torah Shulchan Aruch. Let's pray what's about where they're both equal in significance. Yesh Kosh, those who are right, Asur, Veloni, here only. Those who say it's Asur, it plays for Shabbos, and Arukh HaShulchan disagrees. If we infer from what they said that such as when the significant thing is more, when the mutter thing is more significant, Mashu the Shavin Asur, and that would seem to indicate that it's when the equivalent in significance is Asur. But we can learn from the Sefer the opposite, because we have a Davar also Chashav Eser. But if they wrote that the thing which is also is more Chashav, then it's also Mashu the Shteim Shavin Mutter. So it sounds like they're both equivalent. It's Mutter. So we can't infer from the statements here. That's the way things are written. Doesn't, without any connotation as to what's mechza, what's 50-50. It says logically they said if they're both equal in significance, neither one is subordinate to the other. Because of the table most goes minus writes that if you have a box which has food and money, if the money is not primary, mutter l'tatal, they be allowed to move the box. I read before it's explicit here. The imraka most inim ikar, even as long as the money is not primary, outside gav the gam ochman ikar, even though the food is also not primary, mutter it's permissible. The local have the memar, otherwise should say him ein ochel ikar so taltal. If the food is not primary, it should be also to carry. It doesn't say that. It says if the money is not ikar, you're allowed to. It doesn't say if the food is not, only if the food is ikar is you're allowed to. It doesn't say if the food is not ikar, you're not allowed to carry. So it indicates that if they're of equal significance, you're allowed to carry. Look at the source in the Gemara, that's clearly indicated there. Ben Perish Rashi, Ben Perish Ratam, Ayin Shom, they don't like Rashi or Ben Ratam in that Gemara. Brackets, Vachte Beglila Shanu, that which it says in Galilee it's different, but Rashi Mishum the Isser Chashul Lehem, because Isser is more significant to them. Tam Neshe Eina Eter Chashul Lehem, according to Rabbeinu Tam, because that is not significant to them. Rabbeinu Tam, Shom Adad, Yishno the Be'inyan, HaChashivus Kosam Avram Sikon the Liberty Day. Has to do with the person himself. Okay, the rest of it's not like that. So the evidence that it's not from Galila, which is a country of itself. These little quartz crystals were they significant in the house of Rabbi Ayin Sham Baduk. See, it's relative to the time, place, and person. Tesai, oh, Kosvu Rabbi Seba Sham. They wrote for time had to zeh. The reason why a lot of carry buses is over us about mutam shum love shalaminka kid melchute. Can't take the action by themselves. I feel he shadi le me'amachta. Even if you toss them out of the shovel when his bracket says so when you need the ashes. If you need for the place of where the shovel is. If you only need the shovel itself, like then don't carry it as is. You're not all afer, but she made to kind of just first toss off or let pour off spill off the ashes and the broken pieces of wood in their spot. And then take the shovel. Also to being shake off the prohibited substance by itself. You should shake it off. Don't move it together with the permitted substance. And it's all based on the premise that we wrote, actually in the foundation we wrote, that which they allowed a basis l'davar asur davar amutar, hitir rakat tzarech, only when we're compelled to allow it. Because the Yeshlavim could understand b'chol davar habasis l'shneim. Anytime yes, I was basis davar asur amutar im yesh achrech b'til to b'shneim. If you're compelled to carry both of them, such a word they're going to get ruined. Because of theft or something similar. Muta Tasman, you're allowed to carry them, move them. You're allowed, if not, you're not or shake off the prohibited substances. Zekhan Rizvara, we already explained. The B'Shavah Lo Shai Basis, so if you forgot it there, it's not considered to be a basis. Is that here in the second bracket? The one bracket is Mar Mekoimis, basically. And he says, I'm Beisel Shem Ramban, Nimasa Embo Chashivas, Lo Shaykh Basis. If there's no significance, it's not relevant to be considered. It doesn't create a basis. Shin Yud Aleph, Dine Tiltul Meis B'Shabbos, Din Tiltul Minat Zad, moving a mace on Shabbos and moving indirectly. Alf HaMeis Al B'Shua Mukta Yirsa, a little dead body, even though it's the greatest form of Mukta. Kom Kam Mikel B'Chacham, Kulos Harbei B'Tiltul. Nevertheless, we're very lenient in carrying it around. Both in terms of muktzah and also in terms of carrying it in places where normally you're not allowed to carry. Such as in a Carmelis and similar locations. There are two reasons for this. First of all, for the honor of the creatures, that they shouldn't become degraded. The mace shouldn't be degraded in the eyes of people alive, and the people who are alive should not be degraded by the presence of the mace. Both ways. Secondly, the Kimla Rabbanon, it's clear the Rabbanon, the Mitosha and Bo Arbe al Meso, Yosem al Mamono, since a person is very much concerned, he's full of anxiety, trepidation on when he has a corpse with which he has personal connection. Even more than on his money. Unless he opens some opening beheta for him to do what he has to do, that's a mitzvah, going to do it in a prohibited way. But the primary reason is because of covered abrios. Because the issue was more anxiety or concern, it wouldn't be so easy to be lenient. Because we only would be lenient in that case where he can come to greater isser than he would if we don't allow him to do. If we don't allow the isser A, he'll come to greater isser of B. That only really applies by a fire. If we don't allow him to move the dead body, it's going to come to extinguish it. I was shying for him, but other things to go where the body is lying in degradation. It's in the sun. This reason's not going to apply. What are we going to allow him to do? Anyway, he's going to carry the dead body. So the honor in this case, the heter is because of the honor of the people and dead body as well. The time we go to Kavod Abrios, Shidduch is the Rabbanon. Kavod Abrios pushes off and it's the Rabbanon. Shaygam Mishul Kinuach, he tirubis the Kosh Klav Sin Shini base. Even to wipe oneself, we permitted this. Zeh Klav Varan, this is a general principle. Pratim is Baruch Fanenu, and the details become clarified in the Simon. Gam Klav Gadol Yesh says a great principle here. The Im Yechos the Takla Better. It's possible to move it better. Lo Natil the Takla Better, so we don't allow to move it be'isr. Kamoshi's Bible said Dishma, as will become clear with God's help. Base. So a mace is in place to be afraid because of a fire. If there's a loaf of bread or a child, you can carry the mace by carrying this bread or this child. Put the bread or the child on the dead person, which the person says we're next to him. Hakik or Tinok, this bread or the child, the Metaslon, you carry both together. The Zel Yesaka, that's the easiest way to do it. Nisha Ina Metaslon is not carrying the mace by itself. Melo Kakar Tinok, what if you don't have a loaf or a child? And the dead body is on a stretcher. Yesholo Od Mita, and you have another stretcher. or bed, literally. Metaltlo, you can carry by turning over from bed to bed. Actually, until you put them into a secure place because of the fire. That the metaltlo mace levad, even though you're taking the mace on its own, nevertheless, ain't a tiltul headya. It's not direct moving. Tilt them inside. It's indirect moving. Binasa samita buses a mace. If the bed becomes a buses to mace, which is he my mace having a shmash, the mace is there ready by twilight. A servatil gam achash and by mace. Now to move it even after the mace is no longer there. Because this is muktzah ben hashmashos, it's muktzah the entire day. If it wasn't there ben hashmashos, however, muteres allowed to carry this bed. Yeshua could say, "Oh, I'm not say some meet the buses lames." It really doesn't come a buses no matter what. They don't meet the mace. The bed does not require the mace. Because actually it's like this. The bed is not necessary for the dead person. The whole point of a dead person is supposed to put on the ground. So therefore it'd be mutter even if there's an issue of there's no issue immediately skatzoi, because the point, you don't want a mace on the bed, you want him on the ground. But the Rosh Arutz HaShulchan poskim the mace mutar kargam, the mace is on the ground, so it doesn't have two beds. The gam kik v'tinok ein lo, you don't have even a loaf of bread or a child. The taltlo kadarko tiltul gomer, you can move it as is, but the Eved with no restraints. The Tiru said mace, because they allowed this by dead body, Kamosh Kosav, as we wrote. Mr. Buddha says if you had in mind initially that it should remain there until Shabbos and only after you start to move it, then the mita does become a basis and you're not allowed to move it. It's not necessarily a mashman or Arukh HaShulchan that way.